Hello, Elena. Thank you so much for coming to join us today. Thank you, thank you.
My
Yes,
pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
I want to introduce your bio through your bio, your work to the audience who might not be familiar. To begin, Elena Tonetti is a filmmaker, author, and dancer. Elena is featured in the UN-sponsored book Force Such as the World Had Never Known, Women Creating Change, as one of the first 30 most influential grassroots women in the world. She also received the legendary Leader Award and was a featured keynote speaker at countless conferences. Since 1982, Elena has been inspiring people all over the world to bring consciousness into the way we live, make, and raise children. She was one of the organizers of the birth camps at the Black Sea in Russia between 1986 and 1989, where women gave birth in shallow lagoons in the presence of wild dolphins. Elena is the creator of revolutionary 2006 documentary Birth as We Know It, which gained her the title of a spiritual midwife to hundreds of thousands of people. She is the founder of Birth into Being International, teaching workshops in 58 countries since 2003 and training other facilitators before her retirement in 2022 after 40 years of devoted service. Please check Elena's website at birthintobeing.com. Thank you again, Elena. I was blown away with your film. And just to be exposed to what is on your film makes a complete change, like a direct experience in what is possible, which so few of us, if any, I know you have been facilitating many people into doing this, but as a, collective conscious, I think we could say that we share our shared consciousness of trauma just through birth, because we have all been born into this world in much less than optimal ways, as we can also see in your movie. And this is the first trauma that we all carry. Please tell us, what's holding us back from this beautiful, natural way of being, that we can come into this world with love, whatever the circumstance?
That's a very good question. What's holding us back? Well, to summarize it in one sentence, it's just a bad habit. It's a really, really bad habit that the women were stuck with for thousands of years lately. So it's not just us, it's our foremothers, it's their foremothers. Somehow the humankind slipped into a very stressful interaction with each other. And the level of stress moved women away from being able to give birth the way the natural, the body is intended to give birth. And now we're born in agony. And not only we're born in agony, we're gestating, and a lot of time, a lot of times we're being conceived in not a very blissful circumstances. Let's face that, because humankind has a bloody violent history, which is programmed into our our genetics, into our blood and bones, that we kind of receive from the very start, because the egg that became you was inside your mother when she was still inside of her mother. That's when the egg was formed. So the egg that became you was exposed to all the hardships of your grandmother's life. And so it's true for her. So the wars, that scarcity, the plagues, the rapes, the famine, it's all in our um, in our memory, in our genetic memory, and maybe in our karmic memory. So we're kind of living upstream with all that baggage the that we carry from our foremothers. They did not know how to play. They were never in a position of allowing themselves to make choices up to their heart's desire. Until recently in human history, women were traded or sold or forced into marriages, and it's not always that they managed to fall in love with their husbands if they were forcefully taken away from their life into their husband's life. And then there was no really education about sex and birth control. So they were bound in to have so many more children. And it was like baby machine, I give birth, I'm pregnant again. It's chronic pregnancy is not very supportive of showing up for your child, being emotionally available and tuned into child's needs. Babies traditionally were not treated as people. They were basically just, you have to be not seen and not heard. And all of this is coded deep within our psyche that um, we must survive by playing the rules. So we kind of absorb the programming, uh, what it takes for me to stay safe, right? And it means to sometimes as a child being misused, even, after, on top of all the birth trauma. And let me clarify what birth trauma is. It's basically anything other than bliss that the baby experiences inside the mother's womb from the moment of conception. So if the baby is not passionately welcomed into this life and loved and tenderly um, um, tended to, tenderly tended, you know, a lot of times women don't even know that they want the child by the time they are pregnant. And then there is a turmoil. Maybe she has another baby that is still breastfeeding. Maybe the financial situation is not very favorable to bring in another child. Maybe her relationship with the baby daddy is abusive and complex and not very joyful. So um, it's very rare that humans are made from the place of complete uh, readiness and desire to bring in the new child. And if we're talking about the Olympic team of birthing, like the full program, how do we make people so they're not traumatized at birth? Then we have to start with conscious conception. We have to start with conscious gestation that allows a woman give birth very skillfully, gracefully, confidently, the way I show in my documentary, when all the reasons why we are not quite open to having a baby are neutralized and taken care of. It is possible. It is basically what my life's work was, to support couples, hopefully, to get consciously becoming parents consciously. And where do we start that? Oh my goodness, to consciously conceive, you need to find the right partner for that. And for that, you already need to come into a place of knowing who you are, knowing why you want a child, why you want to bring the new soul into this three-dimensional reality, right? It's like unraveling to the very beginning, where does the birth trauma begins? And the thing is that it doesn't even begins here at conception. It begins from when the mothers of the couple were conceived. And it begins when their grandmothers were conceived. It's a really, really vast field of interaction, intergender, um, interkarmic lines of so many people, because you never know which ancestor is gonna step forward with that new being. You know, we're never alone here. We are the direct result of thousands of people that had to come together in a certain way to even survive. You know, given human history, even surviving was already a sign of incredible intelligence, because the reality of it is we are all survivors. We are genetically wired to survive because all our ancestors survived, right? It's also in our blood. So with all the horrors of what humankind experienced before, just watch historical movies. Your hair would go straight up on your head. How did people live like that? It was really uncomfortable, very, very scary when you're in your village and you're minding your business and milking a cow, and all of a sudden the horsemen come and burn everything and rape women and drag them into slavery. It's, you know, it's somehow we managed to really not live well, historically speaking. And all of that stress brought women on a brink of state of dissociation. Like you can't really be fully emotionally present to that level of violence, right? So we have to kind of check out and get numb. And then when the baby comes, our grandmas were just, oh, another one. Maybe it will survive, maybe not. You know, it was too expensive um, to get really bonded with our mothers and grandmothers. It was very unusual to actually connect with the child, with the baby. Mainly kids were left to their own devices. And in a sense, it was making strong people, but in the other sense, it was breaking us as humans. It was breaking our spirit and our ability to stay in alignment with our spirit's intention to walk this earth. So, in my understanding, the body is the physiology of the body. It needs to be in alignment with the cocoon of our divine feminine, which is our soul. Our soul is the heart is the organ of our soul. We're connecting with other people on soul to soul level, heart to heart. And then all of that is inside of the cocoon of our divine masculine principle, no matter what gender we are. Our spirit is our divine masculine, and it's the drive, it's the purpose, it's the desire to have a body, in the first place. It's the spirit's creativity and drive that calls forth the miraculous mystery of something that did not exist before to come into existence. It's nothing short of a miracle. Every single human being is being called here by this desire to experience something other than eternal bliss, something other than what the eternal bliss is. The only thing there is when you're just a speck of consciousness and the vastness in the aeons of the universe in between realities. And at some point that spirit wants to have an experience of density, of something that allows the sensory experiences. You can't have, you can't kiss when you're just a spirit. You can't swim with dolphins or run barefoot in the sand or in the grass or hike in the beautiful woods when you don't have arms and legs. You're missing it. Whatever form it takes, whatever reality the spirits wants to play with at the moment, there is a vastness of options. But when I tune in my deep meditative states into that place of looking at planet Earth, it's so precious. It just kind of glows in the dark, and it's so small and so gorgeous and so needing the help of bringing more consciousness to her. And from what I understand, humans are a nervous system of this young, very young body of this planet Earth. So we're still kind of, toddlers trying to figure out our way around, and the young nervous system is not very skilled. So this is why we are just keep hurting ourselves. That's what kids do. The toddlers, look at them. They can burn something, they can break something, they can hurt themselves, fall out the window. That's basically how we're exploring what it's like to find our place on Earth. And the thing is, we're never meant to disconnect from that trajectory, from that drive to be on this planet. We're meant to stay connected with the source from which we arrived. But that sensory overload in the process of making the body shifts the baby into the fetus into the state of dissociation. So we'll lose the contact due to that sensory overload. And then we don't remember, who am I? What am I doing here? Why did I do this? What was I thinking? So I think that that's what the Bible calls original sin. It's not a sin per se, it's something that is making us forget the connection with the source and not remember our intention of bringing that level of consciousness that is possible in high frequencies. But then directly, three-dimensional reality it's pretty dense frequencies. It's rather on a low range compared to where the specks of consciousness reside, right? So to my understanding, the soul is the connective tissue. the spirit can meet the body through the soul. And it's very important to have them all aligned. The body, the soul, the spirit, and then the person is unstoppable. Then the person is creative and juicy and sexy and wants to be, everything that spirit wants the person to be. But from that state of dissociation, it's basically impossible. In the state of dissociation, it's a survival mode. All we need to do is please others in order to experience that they're not mad at us, that we're gonna feel like we're okay, that we're safe. We have to comply. We have to learn to placate and or hide or just stay dissociated, or there's many strategies of not being who we are. But then there is it's one thing that we are gestating in this soup of confusing amniotic cocktail of mother's hormones, when some part of her is happy about being pregnant, but another part of her is worried sick, and she's pumping along with some dopamines. She might be pumping adrenaline and runs on coffee and eats the food that the baby doesn't like, or smokes cigarettes and alcohol or drugs. I don't know. Even in best case scenario, what is good for mother might be for the not very beneficial for baby, because the baby is already kind of like, am I wanted or am I not wanted? It turns out that the relationship between the mother and the baby daddy are one of the biggest issues in the formative period of the fetus. When they're not on the same page and maybe they're fighting, it turns out that the baby is completely aware of it. There is enormous amount of research in the field of pre and perinatal psychology and health that describes in very wide variety of experiments, and there is a lot of articles written about it, how fetus is experiencing the world while inside the mother. And then there is a whole other stage when the birth itself, the way we're being born, whether it's graceful, peaceful, confident, when the mother is like drawing deeper on her power and surrenders and opens and digs deeper and connects with the baby and goes, it's okay, baby, it's okay, you're doing it, come out, I love you, I am so looking forward to holding you in my arms. There is that experience for the baby, that the baby is completely aware of it. Or if there is mechanical surgical extraction of the baby's body, when the mother is completely out, anesthetized, and there is no connection, there is no hormones in her body that's supposed to help the baby out. Because when the mother is checked out, the baby is completely alone. And from that state of aloneness, it's very hard for the baby to actually keep moving towards the opening, towards the end of the tunnel. There is absolutely mind-blowing complexity of hormonal exchange from the mother's body to the baby's body, as from the moment when the baby sends a signal that it's ready to come out, the mother's body starts producing, in the ideal case scenario, enormous amount of oxytocin. It's the hormone of high. You can't take enough LSD or meditate enough to produce that much oxytocin that the body is supposed to be able to produce to open up, to make all the tissues soft and stretchy and let the baby out. It's that's what nature intended. Any cat knows how to do that, any monkey out there in the wild. But the brain cannot produce oxytocin and adrenaline and all the stress hormones at the same time. It's only one lab in there. So if it's producing stress hormones, it's not available to produce oxytocin. So adrenaline is actually closing the cervix, preventing the baby from getting out. Because, imagine you're in the wild and the gazelle is giving birth to a baby, right? And all of a sudden there is a sound or a scent. She has to be able to run for her life and not drop the baby. So this is that moment when a woman enters the hospital and all the hospital scenes, smells, attitudes, sounds, it closes the cervix, and the medical profession calls it false labor. It was not false labor. It's just the baby kind of backed up like, oh no, this is not what I want. So there is a lot of things that are normalized in hospital that are not normal. That, like premature cutting of the cord. When the baby is born, they clamp the cord right away and cut it. That's a crime. That's an absolute crime against natural rhythm of placenta pumping out the rest of the blood into the baby. There could be still up to half of baby's blood still in the placenta. It's a very rude, abusive experience by the baby, because then the baby is forced to take a breath with the lungs that are still collapsed from going through the birth canal. The lungs are closed. So they just need a little bit of time to kind of open up and relax and drain the amniotic fluid, because there could be still fluids inside, because baby's open mouth, the fluids are all over. So you have to gently let the fluids drain, and then allow the cord to stop pulsing. When all the blood is drained from the placenta into the baby, the cord just stops pulsing. You know it by just holding the cord, and when it stops pulsing, then it's safe to cut it. That it means that baby got all their blood. So it's very difficult for us, after all that routine normalized abuse that is not intended. Doctors are not really like, oh, I'm going to be this evil force and torture this poor baby. No, they just don't know. Somehow, all this knowledge that is in existence for, I don't know, the last 50 years, we know that premature cutting of the cord is very harmful for babies, but it's still not in medical textbooks. One of the doctors actually quite recently told me that he would lose his license if he would delay the cord clamping, because in his textbook it was written that if you don't clamp the cord right away, then the blood will start pumping from the baby back into the placenta. Really? The nature is that stupid? How, who wrote this? That's the thing. All those normalized abusive practices are anonymous. There is no name to them. They're just being transitioned from one textbook to another, from one professor to his students to another generation of students, because that's how it's done. It's not how it should be done. And it's not up to us for them to change medical textbooks, but it's up to us to get empowered and know what we want and what we don't want. And there are practices of writing the birth plan. There's practices of inviting doulas that are basically advocates, because a woman in labor cannot start fighting with a doctor. And her husband sometimes is out to lunch, is so re-traumatized from his own birth, because for a man to be present with the intensity of his wife's giving birth, he has to neutralize his own birth trauma first. And it's a very big process, because most of men here in America, for example, were circumcised right after birth. And that is an it's one of the biggest traumas a human body can handle, because they're cutting without any anesthetics through 20,000 erogenous nerve endings in the foreskin. It's this fold of the skin on tip of penis, and they just cut it off at birth. And somehow it's justified, but it's so bizarre to me. I mean, some people are justifying it by devoting the baby to God, but that God created that body part in the first place. What are we doing? So my heart goes out to it. It's the absolute most pain the human body is able to handle, because of how sensitive that body part is. It's actually an organ. It's an organ of pleasure. It's an organ of knowing not only your own pleasure, but also the sexual partner's pleasure. That's the thing. Without that organ, the man is kind of blindfolded. It's he doesn't know where his partner really is in their interaction, unless he learns how to use other senses and read the partner's body language, and just be so intimately in tune with each other. But that's a big topic by itself. I want to move on. I actually have a big article on my website about all of this, how it started, why they're doing it. So when I learned about it, I was quite horrified that it's down to old men in my generation in America. I was like, why? Um, in my article, I'm explaining what I found in that research. So
So yes, I'm wanting, so it's no wonder that we ended up with this drive directed towards wherever, without really having the autonomy with which to direct it, without the connection to ourselves. And
exactly.
we're all together in this. It's not, I love this. It reminds me of this beautiful quote that I've heard from my teacher, that ignorance has no beginning, but it has an end. And wisdom has no end, but it has a beginning. So we don't know. It's not to blame anybody. We're all in it together. That's where we are together as human beings. And no matter how we are in this ignorance, that's where we are still. And for it looks like the precaution, the ramifications will be carrying on for a while longer, at least. We will be, our minds will be blown away by looking at what we're doing today in some tomorrow. Seeing what we're doing today, it's still going to look quite incredibly violent. And so let's be where we are. And Elena, please tell us, how do you advise us to move on from where we are? We're already in the cycle. We don't even know where we're going to go from here. How are we going to stop and reevaluate just one by one, each in our own place in space?
Well, first of all, is becoming aware that something is missing, that the way things are, we don't know what we don't know. So it's that impulse to start that private detective work and investigate, where am I holding myself back? And you said one of my favorite words in this life, wisdom. So why some people just age and other people become wise elders? I think this is exactly where an elder could be 30 years old. It could be 5 years old. It's just that wisdom that permeates their being. And it comes from that alignment of the mind, which is the spirit instrument for the spirit, into the body through the heart. The main thing is to learn to be kind, and first of all to ourselves. First, to learn to treat ourselves the way we want to be treated, because we're all programmed to treat others the way we want to be treated, right? It's good when you can, but you're running on fumes if you never treated yourself that way. So you don't really have a reference point. You think that this person wants to be treated that way because you're projecting your own desires, but you are not really in tuned into their needs, whether they're your spouses or your children or your parents. You can only understand where the other person is if you understand where you are. So it's the number one task is to understand ourselves and love ourselves through all the mistakes we made, all the drama we have experienced, all the pain, all the hurt, all the parts where we are not socially acceptable, like when we don't behave the way others like. We need to deeply, deeply connect with those parts that are acting out, asking for attention, and really bring in alignment our heart and our mind with our body. And how we do that, it's like start investigating. There is a lot of help out there. And some things you can do on your own through exercising, meditating, yoga, hikes, time in nature, swimming in the ocean with dolphins. There is a lot of self mending that can happen, but then at some point there comes a moment when you do need another person to connect with in that place where that connection never happened when you were a baby, when somebody did not know how to meet your needs because they didn't even know that you have needs. And
Yeah.
and there is a lot of healing modalities that help with that. I designed my own program that consists of 40 very, very different exercises and processes to bring exact that experience. It's almost like a new reference point in the nervous system to own all the little abandoned parts of ourselves in all the dark places where we can't look, where we are afraid of ourselves. Because, like, if I would actually feel into what that part of me feels, I would just scream bloody murder to the rest of my days. There is so much rage and anger and pain and hurt and sadness and fear in there that it's just really, really scary to look at it. But looking at it is necessary, not to stay there, not to get re-traumatized. This is a very important part, to find the healing modality that can take you there, not to sit in it, but for you to experience bouncing from it. It's like the healing modality that allows you to really own the power of knowing that place and having the remote control that I know you, but I am moving forward. I am allowing myself to live in a much bigger world than in just having all my energy frozen in that one place where I got hurt. And connecting all the dots, like really stepping into everything that you actually are. That's where your creativity and your playfulness and the ability to love and to be intimate and to feel joy and feel beauty and see beauty, because a dissociated person cannot even perceive the goodness. Like, I know women that describe they want a partner, but when they describe the partner that they want, it's all in negatives. I want the partner who doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, doesn't beat me, doesn't it's all like what he doesn't do. And but what what do you actually want? Like, how do you want to feel when you're with that ideal person? That the brain doesn't even go there. It's, if you don't have a reference point of that feeling that you have when somebody is holding you just right, just the way you need it to be held all your life.
I have so many more questions for you, and now we have enough time maybe to go into one or even not. Which one should I pick? And then we also discussed that maybe you're going to do a little walkthrough for us to have an experience of your modality. How should we do this? I want to have one question for a little bit and then maybe a little bit of a guidance. Would you like to do that?
Sure.
Yeah? Okay, let's see if we can. So my I know that in your free gift you're going to be offering a 25-minute edit of your film. And in this film, we have some scenes, natural ones, not, it's a documentary of an orgasmic birth, literally. So it's not even possible in our minds. How could this be within this much pain? How could a person experience pain and pleasure as one and the same thing at the same moment? And this is my question. You have shown this in your film to us, how it's possible to actually have one of the most, traditionally or historically painful moments to be an orgasmic one. And it is possible. How can we relate this to our viewers who are here to see how to come out of the direction of workaholism and even work martyrdom? that we're sacrificing our core selves.
Well, it's the same thing. It's the same thing that takes to bring woman from being terrified of giving birth into her ability of giving birth in ecstasy. It's the same process as to bring any person from the place of being stuck and contracted and terrified of life into a place of um, just flowing with the day and time and their essence as their spirit's essence. It's literally up to finding that place of alignment with the rightness of your place in this world. And there is many different techniques how that is accomplished. That's why my method personally has 40 different processes, because it's none of like not neither one of them is going to like, oh, that's the magic bullet, but taken from different angles over a period of time, okay, we're unraveling this moment, this moment, this moment. My trainings are 16 days. So in 16 days, you can get a lot done. Um, but even if you can't come to that kind of intensive, in the convenience of your own location, wherever you are, you can find somebody who can help you work with it and unravel where are you stuck, where are you holding back. The main thing, though, it's not just talk therapy, because talking happens from cortex, which is not even developed yet. It doesn't even exist yet when the majority of the trauma happened. When you're a fetus, when you're birthed, when you're 1 year old, the cortex doesn't go there. It's not a cognitive trauma. It's not in your logic, rational awareness. So you can't talk your way out of it. So you need to find a modality that is very kinesthetic, very body-centered, finding where in the body are those holding patterns. And the quick demo I can do is, for example, a quick shift, like when you are really stuck in a loop, or you need a quick shift of mindset or energy. What is really, really helpful when you need to, like, like on your calculator, you press C to start over, to delete the old number in your calculator. So this exercise is that pressing C. When you, on really fast breathing, move all your facial muscles every which way. It looks rather silly and weird. And
Oh.
yeah. And you do that until you get like tingles inside your head, and all of a sudden you stop this and it's like, wow, we're on ground zero. We're starting from scratch. And it's very good to do something like that with your kids when they're in a temper tantrum state, and the mother suddenly
Yes. Oh.
it stops their drama. It's like, what are you doing, mom? And it's like, do this with me. And make the silly faces. And there is actually a very big kind of science behind it, because our face has enormous amount of muscles that communicate with the lab in the brain that produces hormones, amino acids that make hormones. And that connection is really receives information what facial muscles are being used. For example, if you have like sad face or anger, or the muscles are used that form a grimace of pain, or whatever, it sends the signal. So when you use the muscles that form a smile or a laughter or like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. See, I just got a shot of dopamines because my brain instantly releases the chemistry that supports my my facial expression. So I am in that exercise, I am confusing my brain. It doesn't know what to make of it. It's like moving them all at the same time, and all of a sudden the brain goes like, huh? What are we doing now? Where are we? What? And it
Beautiful.
stops. It brings that pause that allows us to reset. It's a reset for the whole nervous system.
And a
And
fun one. It's such a
and a
fun
fun
one.
one.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and if you want, you can do the full, it's called monkey breath in my world. So if you want, you can actually go with like full
Yes.
go into the whole monkey experience and be the monkey for a minute. And it's definitely a very, very simple and powerful tool. And kids love it. Kids love it.
We love it. I love it. Yes. What would
Oh,
you like to close with, Elena? Thank you so much. I'm actually gonna jump right away. I'm gonna finish it with the jump right now. But how would you like to close it before we do?
well, there is so little that I was able to share
I know, I
in
know.
this.
I need 5 more hours with you. We do.
Well,
We need
actually,
5 more hours to begin.
yeah, for about
Yeah.
150 more hours. I
Yes.
just
Yes.
tried to write a book and I dictated
Huh?
150 hours and that didn't even scratch the surface.
Mm.
It's kind of
Yeah.
really vast body of information, but I do have hundreds of hours of my interviews and talks online
Mm.
on my site, on my YouTube channel. On there, it's a very, very important information that should be in every school curriculum, in every kindergarten curriculum.
Yes.
Because imagine if we teach the kids to do monkey breath, how how much less drama they would
Yes.
store in their little bodies from all the hurts they experience. Their hurts are big. They're small people, but they can have big feelings. So anyway, yeah, there is a lot of information to be shared, and uh, please watch the free gift, the documentary, if you want. There is a total of 4 hours, including bonus features that have a lot of information in it. The feature film is 75 minutes, but I have thousands of letters from mothers that allowed their children to watch that, and it literally watching it, our brain doesn't really know the difference. When we watch horror movie, we're pumped with adrenalines. When we're watching something this powerful, a woman going into full orgasm while giving birth, it does something to our brain, and kids stop being symptomatic from their own C-section, from their own really traumatic birth, when they display horrible symptoms like 2, 3, 4 years old. Then there is this one girl that watched my film at 4 years old. She watched my movie 64 times and her mother was blown away. She would just get up in the morning, push the button, watch the whole film, then go about her day. Because it was living in their DVD player in 2005 when it just came out. And she had really bad symptoms from very traumatic birth. They all went away. On the 64th time, she just got up, turned it off in the middle of the film, and said, "This is the way I was born, not to be a midwife." And she walked away. She never asked for it again, but she was very present and clear. She stopped drawing those horrible black and dark navy blue, like angry pictures. It was all flowers and princesses from then on. She stopped being afraid of strangers and hiding behind her mom every time and never making an eye contact. She was able to completely be present with, like, there's my mom and there is somebody walking in the door. Who are you? You know, there was this the difference was so dramatic. And mom was pregnant, so that's how the movie got into their house. She got my movie and she watched it once, and the girl was in the room. You know, she didn't think twice about it. But then the girl wanted to watch it over and over and over again, and it did something to her. It does something to you when you see how it should have been, because otherwise
How
our
it can be.
does not have a reference point of what it could have been, what it should have been, but the body receives the transmission, that high frequency of that ecstasy of the beginning of life, and it's like absorb it, and it's like, this is how I was born. This is my possibility. That is how I allow myself to feel that I was loved, that I was welcome, basically overriding the imprint that we actually got from being born the way that happened.
Definitely my experience watching it. And everyone has it. Please go get it. Yeah, the free gift will be available to get. And thank you so much, Elena. Thank you so much.
My
Because I
pleasure.
wish I could continue with you. We're going to respect the audience's time and your time. And hopefully we'll be meeting again soon.
Thank you.
Yes,
Bye.
thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.